Hello, my name is Kirioth, and today we're going to have a little chat about Battlefleet Gothic Armada 2, which we will from now on just call Battlefleet 2, because we're not saying that whole thing over and over again. And this is mostly because you've asked for it. People keep asking me what I think, whether I can make a video on it, so that's exactly what I am doing. Now all you've got to do is watch it. We've already had multiple announcement videos, we've had multiple channels talking about this, so what we're going to do is essentially just talk about the things I liked from the first one, the things that I hope they fix, and my general hopes for the second. So, let's start out with the unit roster, the faction roster. Actually, I didn't think Battlefleet had too bad of a choice when it came to which faction to play. I used Dawn of War as the sliding scale of lack of choice. So, the first game and its various expansions gave us a shed load of different races to play. Dawn of War 2 gave us slightly fewer, but still a decent number. And then Dawn of War 3 gave us 3. If there are any more, if any have been announced in terms of expansions or anything, I don't know, because I played Dawn of War 3 at launch for about 3 hours and hated every second of it, and I've never gone back. So I'm out of the loop on that one. Actually, I think, in fairness, Battlefleet had a decent number, especially once the Tau DLC was released. The problem is that it's very easy to look at the tabletop game and the lore as a whole and go, well, where the hell is the rest of it? Realistically, the companies do not have 30 years or whatever to produce these games. Games Workshop has built up over time, a lot of time, a huge universe with a lot of races, a lot of factions, and a lot of models. Video game companies, developers, publishers, they don't have that time. They do not have the required time, money, or manpower to recreate every single unit that we see in the tabletop. So, whilst it's nice to have more, I don't think it's unreasonable that we get less. That being said, I always like more, so the fact that Battlefleet 2 seems to be coming out with Imperial Navy, and I've got the list because I kept missing one off, Imperial Navy, Space Marines, Adeptus Mechanicus, Necrons, Chaos, Eldari Corsairs, Eldari Craftword, Eldar, Drakari, Dark Eldar, the Tau Merchant and Protector Fleets, Orcs and Tyranids. That's crazy good. That's really good. That is pretty much exactly perfect for me. It has all of the choice that you would get from the tabletop game and the expansion, and it seems to be suggesting that that is just going to be the starting roster. You're just going to get everything straight off. That's ridiculous. That is a huge amount of choice. They have outdone themselves there. If anyone complains about that in terms of choice, you're off your face. You've lost it. So that's already a plus point for me. They've also talked about improved multiplayer modes, and they've talked about I think it was drop in, drop out co-op for the single player campaign, which is absolutely fantastic. I mean, some of my most fun experiences I've had with Dawn of War 2 were playing the campaigns in co-op. I thoroughly enjoyed those, and I wanted Battlefleet Gothic to have that feature to begin with, and it never came, which, depending on budget and time, is understandable, but it's still something that I would have liked. If that is indeed coming straight off the bat in Battlefleet 2, then once again, that is a huge plus point for me. To be honest, I think it looks pretty promising. It's a lot more ambitious. Tinderloss Interactive aren't a huge developer, but I think they already have enough of a groundwork laid out in the first game to actually achieve what they're saying they want to achieve. There are, however, a few things that I would quite like a little bit different. I thought the campaign for Battlefleet Gothic was pretty damn good. I did enjoy it, but I would have liked multiple campaigns. I would have liked it so that we could have had campaigns from the perspective of the other races. That being said, making a fully fledged, fully individual campaign for every single race is time consuming and it's expensive, and I can absolutely understand why they didn't do it. I mean, if you look at Dawn of War 2 Retribution, one of my favourite games of all time, I would be the first to tell you that the campaign is kind of fucking lazy. Once you've played it with one faction, you've basically played it with each faction. The maps do not change. It's a repeated experience, but with slightly different cutscenes and different voice acting. I still enjoyed it, but I would have liked it to be more fleshed out, to be more individual to those factions that you were playing. That's not going to happen for 12. It's for 12 factions. That's not going to happen at all in Battlefleet 2. But what I would like to see is maybe have it so that there are 2 distinct campaigns. Even if it's only 2. From, I don't know, the Imperial perspective, or the Imperium perspective, or the Chaos perspective. That would be enough for me, I think, especially if you were given a choice of what fleet type to use when playing as the Imperium. If you could pick between the Imperial Navy, the Space Marines, or the AdMech, that would add an extra layer to that. It'll be interesting to see what they do. They've said that there will be several extensive campaigns, so we could actually see some fully fleshed out stuff. I just don't think it's all going to be like 100% unique to whichever factions they pick to have a campaign, because that is a significant undertaking. But I would hope that we see something. It's set like in the Gathering Storm and the 13th Black Crusade, so it's nearly up to date with current lore, just about. And I think that does have potential to shed a bit of light on the story in a different way, because if there's something that we don't see a huge amount of compared to kind of ground battles and sort of personal development stories in 40k, you don't tend to see a vast amount of stuff in terms of what actually happens in ship-to-ship battles. I know that there are plenty of them in the Horus Heresy books and other books as well, but they're rarely the focus. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with that. I'm kind of looking forward to that aspect of it. Now, as for things they need to improve, for me personally, the first game had some interesting balance issues that I don't think were ever really addressed to my satisfaction. Again, that's kind of personal opinion. That's just something that I found. I would hope that there would be more of a concerted effort to keep everything balanced, although I will also say that is going to be far more difficult with this many factions. It's going to be a lot trickier to make it so that everything feels even, but with its own flavour. That's one of the great challenges of RTS games, actually making it so that there isn't 1 or 2 factions that stomps the rest of them. It's kind of difficult to do. I would hope that they've learnt enough from the first one that they would be able to do that effectively this time round, but time will tell. A very personal issue that makes it sound like it's some sort of health problem. A personal issue that I had with Battlefleet Gothic Armada was like ridiculous loading times. Now, this is probably something that most people aren't going to care about, or you may not have even experienced, but for whatever reason, on my machine, Battlefleet still loads at a glacial pace. We're talking like sometimes 15 to 20 minutes to get onto the main menu, which is absolutely ridiculous. Now, I've tried uninstalling and re-downloading the game. I can't really do anything to defragment the disk it's on because it's an SSD. The fact that it's taking that long on that SSD, which also has it's got multiple other games installed that frankly should be more intensive than Battlefleet Gothic Armada. I mean, Battlefield 1's on there and that loads pretty much instantly. Even GTA 5 loads quicker than Battlefleet Gothic Armada, and GTA 5 has some of the worst loading times I've ever seen from any game ever. And it's still better than Battlefleet. Now, that could just be something that is like a weird quirk of my system, but I have seen plenty of other people complain about it, so whatever the cause of that is, I would hope that something is done to change that. Optimization-wise, I never really had an issue with the first one, although I know people did. I would say that perhaps at times it could have run a bit smoother, but overall, it wasn't a terrible experience. It's not like it was janky and laggy as hell, for me anyway. Really, what it comes down to for me is preserving the feel of the first, whilst managing to expand it in such a way that it still feels properly 40k. Because that's something that I felt they did nail with the first game. I think they nailed the actual feeling of Warhammer 40,000, the kind of epic scale of space combat. Sometimes I felt like the ships seemed to lack weight. Things like ramming, whilst fun, never felt 100% satisfying, just because I never felt as though the ships had the weight, the inertia that they should. That, though, is something that's very difficult to nail down. And that's entirely subjective as well. I've spoken to people who were like, you felt like the ships didn't have a lot of weight? Are you crazy? It felt like they were really, it felt like they had a load of weight. They felt really kind of chunky and difficult to manoeuvre. I never really got that. But then again, that's not to say that no one else got that as well. So I think they've got an interesting task ahead of them. Because I think there's also a bit of a kind of perception that the first one never really had the finishing touches. It never had the amount of attention that it should have had once it launched. I kind of felt like they delivered a decent product in the end. There were issues, there were problems with it, yeah, but in terms of a kind of reasonably priced experience for what it was and for how it ran and what it offered, I never really had a problem with it. I quite enjoyed it. So if they can maintain the feeling of the first whilst still managing to expand it by like twice the original's roster, if they can do something whereby the campaign can be, well, actually will be doable in co-op, and they can make it so that other factions get decent fleshed out campaigns as well, I'll be happy. And I think it's going to be interesting to keep an eye on it. I mean, it's coming out this year, so I'm assuming they've been working on it for quite some time, but in the quiet. So it'll be an interesting thing to keep an eye on, and hopefully, when it comes out, I'll get that same sensation that I did the first time I loaded up the original, which was, admittedly, after quite a while, loading it up, getting into a battle. I went straight into a skirmish, and straight away I was like, this feels like 40k. That's what I want from this. And if it can deliver that, then to be honest, I'll be pretty happy. Question is, what do you think? Did you like the first one? Do you think it was good? Do you think it was bad? Do you think they got a decent job? Or could it have done with a bit more care and attention? Are you looking forward to the second one? Will you buy it, or do you feel burnt by the first one? Because I know a few people do. Let me know in the comments below. In the meantime, feel free to click any and all of the links in front of you. Patreon, subscribe videos, all of that shit. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time. Toodaloo.